the most standard post-purchase email is like, thanks for the purchase. It's a really cool product. You're going to love it. It's like, well, yeah, I know it's a cool product. I know I'm going to love it. I wouldn't have given you my money otherwise. Show them something to go along with their product. Be like, hey, you loved that product. We're so stoked you purchased it. If you bought that, you need this. This is like e-commerce 101. You go to like Amazon or any shopping site, you buy something, they say, hey, these are the things that other people are buying if they bought that. Do that with your post-purchase flow. A really cool strategy you can do as well is have like the first email be recommendations and then hit them with an offer in the second email. Be like, hey, stoked you made this purchase. We want you to try more of our products. We want you more in the family. We're so stoked that you're part of this brand now. Here's some other products that we know you'll love. And heck, here's a discount on top of that. Like, how cool is that?
Will, welcome to All Killer No Filler. You stepped up and let us know you had some stuff to talk about today. You are on the retention team, and we're talking about how to stay cool and calm in Q4 and get the job done. What's your mindset like in the early stages of Q4 on the retention team here at Pilothouse?
Well, I'm going to make a little bit of a confessional here. This is going to be where I get something off my chest. I'm turning this into my therapy session now, but I tend to be a pretty anxious person. And I think Q4 for a lot of people is probably the peak of anxiety. I don't think it gets much more scary than this time of year. But something I found this year was going into Q4 on the retention front, I'm not as anxious as I thought I would be. In fact, I've been pretty cool, pretty calm. And I don't think that just comes from a mindset shift or anything I've done psychologically, but rather just the way we've planned and prepared. There's some strategies you can use to kind of take the edge off, I think, if you're doing retention strategy right now.
Very cool. Well, hold court. Let us know.
Well, this is going to be my Q4 retention survival guide. This is for anyone out there that is looking to cure that anxiety. There's so many different things you can focus on right now. There's so much noise in the marketplace. If you got to do this, you've got to do that. I kind of took everything. I distilled it down into what I think is the absolute crucial things you must do. We'll just jump right into it.
Let's go.
I think the first thing is probably your audience. You need to look at your audience. Okay, Q4 is coming. Everyone's going to be sending an email. There's no brand out there that is not sending emails during Q4. Even the companies that don't even have D2C or an e-com side of their business, they're still sending emails during this period of time. The inbox is crazy. If your audience isn't seeing your emails right now, if they're not engaged, if your segmentation hasn't been effective up until now, your audience isn't healthy, it's going to be really, really, really rough. You need to look at your list health right now. Be honest, do an honest gut check. When you're sending out emails that have content that would normally be, pretty engagement heavy, is your audience actually clicking on what you're sending? I would say right now is the time to really, really lean into engagement-focused content. I would step away from merchandising. I would step away from even, product features. I would step away from leaning into the brandy emails. I would just focus on figuring out what has your audience been clicking on up until now and send out lots of that content. We want them to be in the engaged segments. We want them to be constantly clicking our emails. We want them to just be naturally engaged. So once Q4 rolls around, it's not like they're clicking one of our emails out of the blue. They've been clicking consistently on what we're sending. We want to maintain that pattern going into Q4. So I think that's probably, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you're keeping your list healthy, which is, I think we've talked about on this podcast with Jordan quite a bit, just about how many zombie lists there are out there of people who've just hammered on these lists for so long without the proper segmentation that when it comes time to Q4, you have these big expectations. But if your list is unhealthy specifically, it's not going to work.
Yeah, you're dead on arrival. There's no point. Everything else you're going to try to do is it's not going to work. There's no point going crazy on any of the other strategies or ideas. If your list isn't healthy in the first place, you're in trouble. So I would start with that. If you're going to be sending more aggressively in the Q4 period, which I think just about everyone is, we want to get as much revenue as we can. You want to start ramping up content now. You don't want to send a ton of emails, just out of the blue. You want to start sending more emails now and just kind of see how your list reacts. So kind of that preparation process as well. It's not just making your audience more healthy. It's making sure that your audience is comfortable with an increased sending schedule and an increased cadence before you actually get to the big game.
And so what kind of content do you recommend people send while we're ramping up?
I've kind of talked about this before on this podcast, and there's the other talk we had about content strategy, but I think that's going to be unique to each brand. Every brand's going to have some form of content that your audience is more interested in than just, typical merchandise-focused content. Maybe that's leaning into some UGC stuff. Maybe that's showing things off in the community. Maybe it's kind of speaking from expertise in your niche. Maybe it's just something really fun and lighthearted. Maybe you're in like the like the health and wellness space, and you're just showcasing people having a good time or just giving you some ideas for activities, like really, really organic, simple content is probably going to be your friend here. Just something that's got a low, barrier to click. When you think of email, it's really just 2 points of getting a click. It's one, getting the click in the inbox, and then two, getting the click on the email. That's what's driving the engagement. That's what's getting you better inboxing. If somebody has to click on an email and that CTA button is always like, browse our stock or shop now or, get a product or, sign up for whatever this is, you're asking a lot for that click. So maybe just ask for something a little bit less, like, hey, check this out, or, look at these cool photos. Like, you could literally do something so silly, man. You could do something like, hey, these are like the 5 cutest photos we've seen from whatever your niche is. Just something really lighthearted, easy to get the click. Stuff like that is going to be your best friend right now.
Amazing.
Once you've done that, once you know what content is driving engagement, you've started to ramp up, you're starting to get ready for that increased sending cadence. You really want to keep a close eye as well on your spam rate during this process. I would say right now, you probably want to go and do some deliverability testing. If your spam rate is high, now is the time where you're going to want to know that. You don't want to find out your spam rate is abnormally high right when you're in the actual Q4 period itself. You're going to want to know that now. So I would say getting ahead of that, doing some deliverability testing as well during this month.
What do we use? Just
idea.
For anyone looking, because I think deliverability is a bit of a black box, especially for people beginning. Sure. I'm just curious, what tools do we use to test our deliverability?
I would point everyone in the direction of Glock apps. That's what we use. You can get it for free up front. I believe they have a free trial to get in the door. This isn't like an affiliate pitch either. I don't have a referral code that I'm using here. But
we use Glock apps as well, yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So Glock is a great service. I would recommend it. I would use that, and then just kind of see how you're landing, see where your emails are going. If you do have a spam problem, like, you're going to need to take a step back right now, like get ahead of that and just start getting your inboxing healthy again. Don't try to fix that during Q4. You're not going to be able to.
And just a little aside, Glock Apps essentially has mailboxes of a couple thousand of bots that they've created essentially, yeah. and they basically just, you send your email to this list, and then it tells you exactly in every email inbox where you're ending up, whether it's promotions or spam or whatever. It's great, great service.
Exactly, yeah, really, really useful. We run it every once in a while. It depends on the account. If the account's just got good metrics, then you don't need to run it that often. But I would say every single account right now could benefit from doing that test, just so you know where you stand before things get crazy.
Very cool. Nice, good shout.
Once you've done that, now we can kind of actually get into the strategic side. So this is really just all logistical stuff up until now. This is just getting your foundation ready, making sure that you've done the back end work to ensure that your account's healthy. Now we can start thinking, okay, how are we going to approach these things strategically? I would say the first thing you want to look at here is probably your send testing. So everybody does send testing to an extent. Now is the time you really, really want to hone in on that testing. You want to make sure you know the times of day, the days of the week. You want to just know when is your audience most engaged, and just put a little note in the back of your mind that when you hit Q4, if you're still sending at what you've identified as your peak times, but you're just noticing results aren't that good, try something totally different. Try something completely opposite to your usual peak sending time, because what could be happening during Q4 is everybody's blasting emails. Everybody's identified these windows of opportunity for when an email is going to be most likely to be opened. Maybe try something during a totally opposite, literally the exact opposite time of the day, and see what happens then, because maybe that's a window that not everyone else is sending. Just something to keep in mind. Don't get too locked in on what your sending time strategy is. Be flexible just in case there's too much traffic going on. Once you've done that, I would say you can take a look at subject lines. And subject lines, people, I would say, misuse subject line A/B testing in a lot of my experience. And by misuse, I don't mean necessarily that they're just doing tests for no reason, but there's not really a clear direction that we're honing in on with testing. Is something I notice a lot. What you want to use testing for is not just two different ways of saying the same thing. You want to use testing to kind of identify trends and patterns within your audience. So a framework that I would like to use is kind of honing in as we go. So for example, you could start with a subject line that compares like a pain point versus a USP. So an example of this could be, let's say we're talking about the cookware space, and I always talk about this because it's one of my favorite spaces. You could have one version of the email say, are you sick of your nonstick breaking down? Are you sick of your nonstick pan leaving flakes in your food? That's the pain point. And then you could contrast that against the USP, which would be like, our nonstick will never flake, and see which one of those resonates better with your audience.
Very cool. I think a lot of people do A/B testing, and they just test things in infinity. They'll just test things without very clear parameters on where they're trying to get to with it, and then you just always end up testing, and then it doesn't do what you want.
Exactly. You want to be honing in on different ways of saying things, different ways of phrasing things, and things that you can use across all your subject lines. So, like, for example, with that test, once you know, like, hey, pain point is actually what my audience cares about more. They don't really care if I talk about our product. They want me to put the pain point in the subject line. That's what gets their attention. Use that on all your subsequent emails. Don't talk about the selling points of your product. Just bring up pain points. You could do percentage versus dollar. That's a really good test to know. Does putting the percent in the subject line work better? Does the dollar in there? That's going to be really helpful during Q4. You could do like a product mention, like mention an individual product in the subject line, or mention the collection that product falls within. See which one of those does better. You could do something really personal and cute, first person, or something really brandy in third person. You could do an upfront subject line that says, hey, this is what you're getting in this email. We're going to give you this in this email. Or something kind of like a teaser, like, hey, you should click on this email. There's something cool in here. These are
Clickbait.
all different. Exactly. Yeah. Clickbait is, the dirty word. But all these different tests will give you learnings you can carry over into all of your Q4 emails. You will then know, like, okay, pain point, use the dollar feature, product feature, personal, and then put that all together. And now you've got like the pinnacle subject line, and that's all of your Q4 content now.
Very cool. And that can also inform your ads, I assume, as well, right? If you know that your audience responds more to percentage off versus dollar off or whatever, you can have that bleed into the other aspects of your marketing as well.
Exactly. Retention is like a really, really unique way of marketing, because you can learn things and find things out about your audience without having to spend a dime compared to like other forms of traffic. It's just a really, really cool way to test and experiment, and it's really efficient. So the more you test and the wider of testing categories you have, the better results you're going to get. And then share that across everything you're doing. With the something to keep in mind is just because something works for a retained audience doesn't mean it's going to win someone over at the top of funnel. But it's worth trying. And if you've got a clue that something is working, try it out.
Very cool. And I just a question. I know we work with Klaviyo accounts mostly, and then so when you're A/B testing on Klaviyo, you essentially say, I want one test A to go to a certain number of people, B to go to a certain number of people, and then the winner goes to the bulk of people. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's a percentage split.
Nice.
So it'll determine the winner in that small percentage, and then the majority of people will get the winner. Just as a small tip for that, I guess I'll give out too, if we're getting really, really into the nitty gritty, I would recommend everybody does like a 10-10. And then 80. So then at least 80% of your audience is getting the winning result. And then 10-10, I find, is like that really healthy balance between getting a significant enough sample size to know that you have indeed found the winner, and not sucking up too much of the audience. You never want to do like a 25-25-50, because only half of your audience is actually going to get the winner at that point. Or in that case, it would be 50 plus 25, so 75% in total. But I find the 10-10-80 is the best.
Very cool. What's next?
Okay. We've now identified a bunch of strategies. We know what we're going to do for subject lines. We know what we're going to do for send tests. We know our audience is good. Now we can start getting into the actual content planning. Now we can get into the individual sends we're going to do during that period. I would recommend, when you're strategizing this, one, obviously, this is the most obvious thing in the world, but it is so important, is get as far ahead as you can, especially on the retention front. Things are going to go wrong. Have contingencies. Don't just plan all your content around individual products and assume that that's just going to work. Things are going to sell out. Things are going to go wrong. Certain emails won't resonate. I would take this time now to create a surplus of content, to be prepared for any of those potential contingencies. So know your crucial dates, know your start dates, your end dates, know your different offer dates. Make sure those are set in stone. But for everything in between, create a surplus of different resources, of different product features, of different collections, of different angles, so that if you identify that a certain type of email format is winning and getting ahead, you have a surplus of that content to then leverage that win. So that's really the big benefit to getting ahead. It's not just about knowing like, oh, okay, I'm going to send an email on this day and that day. Getting ahead means having a surplus, having an extra supply so that you can leverage your wins when you're actually in the midst of it.
Marketers, if you're finding yourself manually creating segments on Shopify and then waiting 20 minutes to download just so you can upload to Google, Meta, or Attentive to keep your audiences in sync, try Trestle Segments. Segments makes segmentation easy and profitable. Choose from pre-built audiences backed by data or make your own. Segments will keep synced across Klaviyo, Meta, TikTok, and more. They've just launched Filter GPT, so now you can segment using natural language. For example, just say, customers who bought during last year's holidays but ghosted since, and voila, it's done for you, ready for retargeting. Isn't AI wonderful? Try it today at trestle.co/DTC. That's TRESL.co/DTC for a special offer. Give us an example. It's October 11th now. Where's your head when it comes to content that you're planning for? I guess it's brand specific depending on when the content kind of comes, but where are you planning right now on October 11th?
I am planning all the way through the entirety of Q4, with the majority of my focus being on all of November right now. I am thinking about everything that is happening in November, and then keeping in the back of my mind that the second that's over, I gotta chain that momentum into December. So don't just only look at November. Look at the entirety of Q4 with your focal point right now on the Black Friday Cyber Week, and then be prepared and have an understanding of that transition. How am I going to transition that into the Christmas stuff, into the holiday stuff? What if Black Friday does really, really good? How do I keep that momentum going? What if it does really bad? How am I going to adapt to that to make the most out of December? And then, of course, you can start talking about Q5. But I would say for right now, set your sights on November and December.
With that synergistic concept of rolling thunder where you're learning at each interaction so that by the time Black Friday Cyber Monday hits, you've got the pinnacle offer, the pinnacle way of saying it, and the best audiences to reach.
Exactly. Yeah, you really need to think about that transition. You need to have offers that aren't going to overlap each other. If you have a really successful Black Friday, but all of your December offers overlap with what you just sold, you're going to have a really rough December. You need to make sure that the offers work with each other, that you can get that transition to be healthy. And like I said, have backup plans. Like, for example, if we did an offer during Black Friday, it just doesn't resonate with our audience. We don't want to double down on that same offer or even a worse offer or a less offer for December. I see that happen a lot. A lot of people go out guns blazing in Black Friday with a really strong offer, assuming it's going to do great. And then maybe it does mediocre, it does okay. And then the offer they have for December is basically just the same thing or sometimes even worse. That's really not going to do great things. It's just going to put you in a bit of a trap where you're kind of scrambling to get momentum back. Whereas if you have contingencies now, or you have a way of making that offer interesting over a longer period of time, you're giving yourself the biggest safety net possible for if things do go wrong.
Nice.
I think there's probably an element to talk in there too about offer planning as well. I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot. I would say in the majority of cases, offer planning for Q4 is kind of just like, here's a percentage, here is a gift with purchase. It's something really simple, it's something really basic. And then that's kind of the end of the discussion. I think if you're talking about just driving in new traffic, maybe that's okay. Maybe you can kind of leave the conversation there like, hey, let's just do a flat offer, call it good. But for retention, you really need to think about how to make that offer not get stale. If I've clicked an email in my inbox during the Black Friday week and it's like, 30% off site wide, and I've seen the 30% off site wide, the odds of me clicking the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 emails with 30% off site wide as the core message of the email are very unlikely. And that's just not an ideal situation to be in. You're losing a lot of opportunity there. I would think about maybe potentially creating multiple offers, or if you can't create multiple offers, just think of a way of saying the same offer differently so it stays fresh in the inbox. So 30% off site wide, for example, let's work within that framework. Let's say that's the only offer I can play with. I'm not going to send email 2, 3, 4, and 5 and say 30% off site wide. I'm going to send email 2 and say product feature, get this amazing product, or bestseller, or sellout risk, limited time only, 30% off, or the biggest discount on this product we've ever had. You're going to take that language and incorporate it into other offers. It's the same thing. You're doing the same thing. It's 30% off site wide, but you're making it fresh so that when I hit my inbox, I'm still clicking those emails. I'm not just clicking the first one and then tabbing out. I think that is really, really crucial, especially on the retention front.
And then you've got that 30% off site wide as a catch-all, maybe at the midnight or the last, whereas you haven't burned it out by being more specific ahead of time. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. Yeah, because then when you go with your last chance, you can just double back to the beginning. I'd like to think of like this period as the first email and then the last chance email are going to be the same core offer. Everything in between should be that offer, but diversified, be it with a new product drop, be it with a different linguistic, be it with a different framing, be it with a different feature. That's going to give you the best results, and it's going to stretch the value of that offer across the entirety of the sale period.
Great tip. Love it.
I would say also, when we're talking about offers, you want to give yourself, again, a contingency. Give yourself a backup plan. Give yourself more levers you can pull. So maybe you've got this awesome offer. Maybe we're trying to change the linguistics. We're trying to phrase it in different ways. But if it's not working, it's not working. And we can't just sit there and hope, oh, maybe, some people will eventually convert. Maybe they're just waiting for the end of the sale. Maybe they're waiting for the last chance. Have backup plans, have contingencies. Maybe we need to throw in a gift with purchase. Maybe we need to increase the offer. Maybe to do something. Just be prepared for that. And of course, when we're talking about being prepared, this is what I was talking about with our content surplus. Have content with that contingency prepared ahead of time so that you're not sitting there, last minute at midnight trying to update an email in HTML to change the offer or change the code or change the structure going, oh my goodness, we have to change everything. You're prepared. You have that backup plan in mind. So think of that now and then build your content around that so you're as prepared as you can be.
How does an increasing discount offer work?
So let's say you led with like 30% off site wide and it's just not converting. You could do something really cute where you send out an email like a day or two later and say, this is an exclusive offer. This is only going to last for it's Black Friday sale. We've got this main sale going on, but this is an exclusive offer just for you. You're a VIP. You're important for whatever that may be. We have, whatever your reasoning behind that, you can, get creative with that. This is an exclusive offer. It's actually going to be up to 40% off now, but only on these select products, just for you, just for today. So you're not damaging the original sale. That's still there. That's going the entire period. But you're like, oh, we're not getting enough conversions. Take a really strong portion of your audience, give them a little bit extra, and then connect it to urgency so they don't feel like they can just sit there on the offer. Connect it to urgency, and then connect it to some specific products so they don't feel like you're kind of cheating them by going like, oh, well, here's a better offer across everything, that they're going to know that, you pretty much pulled the rug out from underneath them. But make it, just for them, just for some unique products they're going to be interested in. You could do like a dynamic block and say like, hey, 40% off these products. These are picked out, curated for you. We know you want these. You've been looking at these. You've been clicking on them. These are for you. You can get 40% off just today. And then it's back to the normal sale after that.
Love it.
After that, I would say then you want to get creative with your content and your messages. So you've got your offer identified, you've got contingencies in place. Now we can start thinking about different formats of messages to get even more creative on top of that. So if we've got these awesome offers, we need to combine them with emails that are going to be unique approaches. So I would say looking at different forms of content. You can do some UGC focused emails of like, hey, check out, some people that love these products, connect that to the offer. You could do a really simple founders message. That one's a classic where it's just like an email like you would get from one of your friends saying like, hey, super stoked that you're interested in our brand. I want you to try this. I know you're going to love it. It's literally me, the owner of the company, or me, the head of marketing, whoever that may be. Here's the code. It's Black Friday. Please try this out. You're going to love it. Maybe here's our warranty or here's the guarantee that we're going to give you. Just diversify your forms of content. And then also, once you have your offer identified, you want to look at your flows. You want to start thinking about how to incorporate that into your flows. If you're not getting ahead of the flows, you're going to be in trouble because you're basically going to be in a situation where you've got these amazing campaigns that are going out to a certain percentage of your audience. They're going out to a chunk of your audience, but they're not going to give you that continued revenue. And you're going to miss out on a lot of the benefits of tapping into the site traffic that you're running. Likely during Q4, you're going to be getting a lot more traffic on your site, a lot more visitors. You're putting a lot of effort into your paid side as well, if that's something you're doing. You want to maximize that on retention by ensuring that if somebody's putting something into their cart, if they are getting into a browse abandoned flow, a site abandoned flow, they are getting that same Q4 offer in the flow. It is an absolute tragedy to put all this effort and time into your campaigns just for somebody to go to your website, for whatever, but be that, organic, be it through a paid ad, put something in their cart, leave, and then not come back because the abandoned cart flow didn't show them the discounted price. It's such a simple win, and it's going to make a huge, huge difference during that entirety of that time period. So once you have your offers identified, plan ahead about how you're going to incorporate that into the flows. Connect that to everything I've kind of talked about, your contingencies, your backups, your different offers. Make sure you have a plan for how you're going to put it into your flows. A really simple way, if you don't want to get too in the weeds, would just be to add a universal block to every single one of your flow messages that has the offer. Go in each day as you're rolling out those campaign emails with the offer, and then just incorporate that into your banner. It's a really low effort way of doing it. You could get high effort. It just depends on the logistics you have to execute.
Stress-free. The other piece of content that we've talked about before, maybe it's more on the ads, but it probably works on the retention side as well, as those behind the scenes things, show a picture of your ram jammed warehouse and be like, our warehouse is going to be the busiest it's ever been because we're just launching this crazy sale or whatever. That could be another solid angle.
Yeah, it's a classic one. There's so many different quirky little scrappy strategies that work for no reason. I remember back in the day with Facebook ads before it was even Meta, one of the best performing creative formats was just a photo of boxes, of just product boxes. It's so weird, but for some reason it just works.
And then there's that Neil Patel that we've actually used on the D2C side a few times. And Sam Parr did it with the Hustle one time where they sort of make it look like an email's gone out mistakenly. I don't like that one's a little bit risky, but it's like sort of like, like a deal got out that was too good. Or Neil Patel was also really good at this thing. It was like, hey, like an assistant would reach out and be like, hey, Neil told me that he wanted to get in touch with you personally, that this offer would be really good. And it was this sort of like forwarded chain that just made it feel more personal. I don't know if that's as applicable to things like D2C. You don't want to get too tricky in the e-commerce space versus the info space, which is what Neil Patel was doing. But yeah, infinite ways to get creative.
You could do something really quirky if you wanted to go wild with this. And I hope someone that listens to this tries it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not ballsy enough to try this, but make an email where it's like the subject line literally says like test send. Cause like, I think everybody who's done this knows that if you do a test send, it'll say that in the subject line. Make it so it says test send, first draft of Black Friday launch, send it like maybe like a day before Black Friday, and then have it be like the craziest offer ever. And then have somewhere like, like the full design. And then at the top of the design, have some text in there being like, hey, this is the first draft. Just wanted to send you this test just to make sure this was approved so we could send this out on Black Friday. And then it just like people are like, whoa, look at this. It's got an offer that's not supposed to be here. And you could even put in the email, say like, oh, just for this draft, it's, I put 50% off as a placeholder for now. The actual offer will only be 30% off. Just something. So like, oh man, this is awesome. That would be super quirky to try. If somebody is actually willing to try that, I'd be like really curious to know the results.
If you try this, I want you get to come on the podcast. That's that. If you're out there and you're a brand and you try that, just email me and then we'll have you on the podcast. Cause I think that would be really interesting. You'd have to have some kind of like, it would be interesting. You probably wouldn't want to acknowledge it. You'd probably just want to be like, or you'd even send out something to be like, hey, looks like you guys got an email that you weren't supposed to, and then you could continually build on it. That's
yeah, it could be like a whole narrative. Yeah, if somebody does it, man, and pulls it off, that would be so cool. It would probably work too. It would just be like massaging the audience afterwards so that they're not like super confused. But I'm sure someone out there could do it.
You've got some bonus tips on here, and you were already just talking about how Q4, not on top of it being the most important sales time, it's also the most expensive time to drive people to your website. So it totally behooves you to make sure that all of your flows are set up, all of your ways to make the most of this traffic that's coming to your website is in place. What are the final tips you have on maximizing retention effectiveness?
So this is going to get into like really, really deep strategy with flows. This is maybe more so for the people that have kind of got all this foundational stuff done and you want to look to like really tap into some other levers you can pull. I would say one thing to think about during this period is your reactivation in particular. Reactivation is, of course, a very complex subject. I think you've done plenty of talks with Jordan in the past about this subject, but this is a really good time to crank on reactivation. Any offer that you're running, like any strong offer during the Black Friday period, by incorporating that into your reactivation flow and then maybe opening up your filters on your reactivation flow to allow a little bit of more traffic in there, this is the time to do it. That whole stale audience that you can't include in your campaigns because it's going to put you in the spam folder, you're hitting them with your reactivation. It's pulling back into those really, really old addresses. You usually have to take a pretty conservative approach to it. But if you use the offer and then open up that flow, it's going to give you that trickle effect where you're not sending out a ton of emails, you're not going to get spammed, but you're pulling over more of those people from those unengaged portions of the list. It's like the best opportunity to think about winning those people back is now. So don't get totally lost on like, hey, how can I just, convert immediate prospects into buyers and recent buyers into, doubled purchasers or consistent purchasers. Use this time to also think about your old audience, your unengaged audience, and how you can win those people back, because winning those people back is what's going to keep your momentum going after Q4. So I'm not even talking about Q5, the buzzword everybody loves to talk about. I'm talking about like Q1. That's the period where things tend to slow down. It's kind of stressful. If you've rebuilt a lot of your audience and won back a lot of your audience now, when you get to that period, you can then leverage those people you've pulled back. So it's going to give you a lot more stability, and you're not going to kind of feel the roller coaster effect of Q4 so much if you think about that. And I would also take a really close look at post-purchase. I think post-purchase is one of the most overlooked flows. It's one of the most easy wins that we find when we like first go into an account and start auditing it. The most like Achilles heel of all the email accounts I look at is a post-purchase flow that doesn't lead with merchandise or isn't merchandise focused. You've just converted someone, whether they've converted from an email, from an ad, or just from an organic source, they just bought your product. They're interested in your brand. Like that is the highest intent of them being engaged with you that you can possibly have. And like the most standard post-purchase email is like, thanks for the purchase. It's a really cool product. You're going to love it. It's like, well, yeah, I know it's a cool product. I know I'm going to love it. I wouldn't have given you my money otherwise. Show them something to go along with their product. Be like, hey, you loved that product. We're so stoked you purchased it. By the way, if you bought that, you need this. You need this accessory. You need this pairing. You need this other thing. It's so classic. This is like e-commerce 101. You go to like any big, e-com platform. You go to like Amazon or any shopping site. You buy something. They say, hey, these are the things that other people are buying if they bought that. Do that with your post-purchase flow. A really cool strategy you can do as well is have like the first email be recommendations and then hit them with an offer in the second email. Be like, hey, we are so stoked you made this purchase. We want you to try more of our products. We want you more in the family. We're so stoked that you're part of this brand now. Here's some other products that we know you'll love. And heck, here's a discount on top of that. Like, how cool is that? I just bought from you guys and now you're already giving me a discount to buy more. My product's coming to me in the mail. I'm excited. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I can't wait to try on my new shirt. I can't wait to try my new cookware. Man, hell yeah, I want to buy some more of your stuff. So that is a really huge opportunity. You can incorporate that with the Q4 offer, or even just doing that for year round. You're going to see pretty significant returns on that. But obviously more so than ever doing Q4 just because of the increased purchases and the increased traffic. So take a close look at your reactivation and your post-purchase. I'm telling you, man, anyone who does that is going to see a massive return on their time and their investment. So yeah, take my word for that one. There's going to be big results from that.
Will, this is just deadly. I want to thank you for coming on today. If you want to be confident as Will, heading into an anxiety-free, as you can be in the D2C and agency space heading into Q4, you gotta, I hope you like this podcast. Send it to someone who you think will get some benefit from it. Will, this is fantastic. Thanks, man.
Thanks for your time, man. I hope this helps out some people, truly, from the bottom of my heart. I hope that if you've listened to this, you're feeling that emotion come down. So I'm wishing everybody a successful Q4.
And you've done such a great job laying it out here, too. We'll publish this in the newsletter as well, just like your written piece. So we'll be able to have an accompanying guide for people. And then, I guess you've already stated it. You stated the buzzword. You're going to have to come back and do our Q5 podcast as well, I think.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think I have to. I mean, we got to talk about that momentum, that transition, that momentum. I will be back, and I am more than happy to give all my tips on that as well.
Nice. Thanks, Will. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilothouse's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C podcast. We'll see you next time.